Yes, everyone, my name is Stephen Howson, and this is 6 transfers to make Manchester United, I was going to say champions again, but let's be real, competitive again, I guess. I like to do things in 5 things that we learn, 5 bacon butters, you know what I mean? I like to go in groups of 5, but Solskjaer has come out, well, he's not really come out, it's sort of been leaked out, and the Times are supposedly saying that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants 6 signings to try and get this squad to compete. He feels like 6 more signings are required, and those signings are a fullback, all right, 2 central midfielders, a number 10, a striker, and a winger, and the club have apparently promised him that the funds are available. And that's like when I start saying, I'm going to start eating salads. I'm not going to have so many Red Bull. Maybe happens for a week, and then, yeah. So I'm not really holding out my hopes that this is what United are going to get. Certainly don't think there's any chance whatsoever that we get more than one, possibly even one of these in this window, but this is supposedly what they're saying. So let's take it at the face value of that, and let's look into who those 6 signings could be and what that Manchester United side would look like on the back of it, because actually I've done it and I think that they're pretty realistic targets. There's people that we've been linked to. There's no one complete. I'm not gone like, right, get me Ronaldo, Lewandowski, Messi. That's a forward free, innit? Not done anything like that. I've gone with people that we're linked to and people that are probably gettable even if we've not been linked to them. So let's have a look at it first then. So the fullback. I'm going with a left back and a right back for this. What I'm doing is an A choice and a B choice, because you're not always going to get your first choice, so sometimes you have to go and get your B choice. So you could end up with a bit of a blend of this, but I'm giving us what I think my first option would be, and then possibly a backup option if we was unable to get that guy, someone in a similar sort of mould. The first choice left back that I'm going for then, because I think it is left back. I don't think you spend 50 million on a right back and buy another right back a season later. So I do think it's going to be a first choice left back. Now, for me, obviously a big fan of Brandon Williams, delighted with how he's approached this season and how he's taken it on and made himself part of the first team and probably almost stopped the club spending any money whatsoever. I actually think out of all of the players we're linked to here, this is the lowest priority on this list. That being said, if you're going to replace Brandon Williams, let's go for someone who's obviously better than him. Let's go with an absolute definite upgrade, not just another left back because. Do you know what I mean? So I'm looking at Alex Grimaldo, left back, probably one of the most well-rounded fullbacks in Europe, Benfica, and Spanish under-21 international. 17 appearances so far this season in the league for Benfica. No goals, 6 assists though. 2.2 key passes per game, 11 clean sheets in the league. It is Benfica, so take as that what you will. 2.2 tackles won per game, 1.5 successful dribbles per game, and 1 clearance per game. Very well thought of defender. Certainly someone, Benfica's a club that United can get players out, you'd assume. Not sure what sort of price we'd be looking for, but I can't imagine this is £100 million signing. I think this is probably in the 30 to 45 sort of million sort of bracket, and I think that would be a pretty decent signing and one that I go, all right, yeah, if we brought him in, I'm not going to be moaning going, he's not even better than Brandon, so whatever, but yeah, I think he's better than Brandon, so he would come in and he would be the first choice left back for United if he did. Now, the alternative as a fullback, as Ole's obviously mentioned he wants a fullback, he didn't specify left or right back. So I'm going to say, let's presume it's a right back. Let's say that he thinks Luke Shaw and Brandon Williams can fight it out for first choice. One's a £30 million signing on hundreds of thousands a week. Obviously, the other one's Brandon Williams just making his way as a professional footballer. Maybe he thinks that's ample. And he looks at right back and he goes, we need a bit of help there. Clearly doesn't fancy Delo. Maybe he thinks Ethan Laird's a little bit way off it yet. I think Ethan is probably close to getting some minutes either in the league or in one of the cups, but let's say it is a right back that he's looking for, then I think you've got to go with Max Aarons of Norwich. 20 years of age, 22 starts for Norwich, 1.3 tackles per game, 4.6 total duels won per game, draws a few fouls. He's got 3 clean sheets, but United have only had 4 ourselves this season, 2 clearances per game and 0 errors committed leading to goals so far this season. Max would definitely be a backup player for Wan-Bissaka. So that's just presuming that that's the side that they're looking at and thinking that they don't have enough cover. Maybe they think they've got enough cover at left back. So that's why I was looking at a different sort of right back there. But two very gettable fullbacks there as two options. Let me know in the comments what you think of those. And let's move on to central midfield, where I think the meat of the conversation is going to live. Bruno Fernandes. Do we even need to learn about this guy? I think we've all been doing so much scouting of him now. I think we can all start putting the Bruno Fernandes badges on our chest because we know about this player. Heavily linked with Manchester United. Personal terms agreed with Manchester United. Seemingly the clubs are still far apart on the valuations. Supposedly we've done a deal at one deal and now we're reneging on that and trying to go back. Looks like there's anywhere between £5 and £20 million difference in terms of valuation. What there is no disagreement on is how good Bruno Fernandes could be for Manchester United. 15 goals and 10 assists in 21 appearances this season for Sporting. Just absolutely outrageous. 2.4 shots per game, 2.3 tackles per game, which means that actually maybe he can sit a little bit deeper. 1.8 successful dribbles per game, and he's fouled 2.7 times per game as well. Bruno Fernandes is a playmaker. He's featured either as a bit of a flanking number 8 or as a number 10. And it's pretty much both that he operates in. Very much the opposite of what Pogba does. Pogba will sit on the left flank of a number 8, or he could feature as a number 10. I don't think it's his best role. I think you get a better Pogba when he's playing the way he's facing rather than with his back to goal. But you could play Pogba in that sort of position. But for me, he definitely replaces Paul Pogba, who I am absolutely certain leaves in the summer. What he's going to offer is very, very high amount of through balls, passing through the lanes. That's something that United just don't do. He's going to shoot from distance, but he's going to shoot better than we see with Pereira and Fred. So hopefully some of them fly in. Spectacular goals. Plenty of chances created for other people. And I think he passes the ball early. So he moves the ball quickly through those thirds. And I really like that about him. So I think Bruno Fernandes is my first choice as a playmaker. The second choice playmaker would be Howson. Clocked this guy a couple of years ago, actually. Me and Dave did a debate for One Football, and Dave wanted to go with the most underrated. It was the most underrated midfielder, or the underrated player, actually, in Europe. And I'd been watching a lot of Lyon at the time. Memphis had been smashing it. Dembele had been smashing it. They had a couple of players that was doing bits for him, and it was a great team to watch. And I liked Uar. And he reminds me of Pogba a lot as well. He's sort of a number 8 off the left-hand side, playmaker, likes to get forward. A bit more than Fernandes. Uar likes to do the spectacular, dwells on the ball a little bit like Pogba, whereas Fernandes is very quick, very early almost in the way he plays. And the debate was, who's the most underrated player in world football? And Dave went with Casemiro. And you're like, who doesn't rate Casemiro? For starters, Casemiro had literally come second in midfielder of the year. So you're like, right, so he's the most underrated because he's not rated the first choice midfielder? Like, logically, he's only underrated by one position in the whole rankings. Whereas Howson, let's say the perception of him was that he was the 250th best midfielder in the world, but maybe he was the 210th. It was just a logical absolute tapping for me. So Howson was who I was going for, and I won the debate. Probably by default, but still. 93% passing accuracy in his own half, 1.2 tackles, 2 goals, 3 assists, almost 3 completed dribbles per game, 17 appearances so far this season for Lyon in Ligue 1. I really like him. He's a definite lightweight version. He's probably not on the level of Bruno Fernandes, but if that's the sort of playmaking midfielder you're looking for, that's a gettable one, I think. So he would definitely be the B choice, with Fernandes being the A choice. But if that's the sort of player you're looking for me, Uar would be the second choice. And maybe the Cantona song could just be Uar. The other midfielder then, seems though apparently we're after 2 midfielders. For me, that's got to be a combative midfielder, a proper number 8, a real box-to-box midfielder. Sal Niguez, sorted. He is the epitome of that player. There's a huge release fee attached to this guy. because he's a huge talent. 1.1 shots per game, 2.3 tackles per game. You notice how that's kind of flipped from both Uar and Fernandez. It's because he sits a little bit more on the defensive side. Also 1.8 clearances per game. 2 goals this season in 19 games for Atletico. There's talk that his release fee wouldn't need to be activated. They're probably willing to accept a little bit lower, somewhere in the 80-85 million range. I still think that's a bargain for Sol. I think he's a brilliant technical footballer. I love his energy. I love his physicality. I think he'd be a brilliant fit for the Premier League, and he would be absolutely my first choice for a midfielder. And I think if you wanted to play a 3-man midfield, you wanted to maybe, let's say you was, away at Liverpool, and you want to go a little bit more combative, you go with Sol, you go with McTominay, and you maybe sit Bruno Fernandes in front of them, trying to do a little bit of playmaking and trying to find those players on the counter. I think that'd be a really effective way United could play. Maybe you're going to dominate a game, maybe Sol comes out. Or maybe you don't play with a properly defensive midfielder, you sit Sol alongside Bruno in a 2, you play with a number 10 as well, and now you've got a very attacking potential football team. I really like Sol. I think he's gettable at a reasonable fee. Whether or not you can get him out of Atletico, whether or not he wants to come to United, those are things we have to go, I don't know. But there is another player in that mould that we could have as a bit of a look to, John McGinn. Massively underrated footballer, I think. 3 goals and 2 assists for Villa this season. Genuine box-to-box player. Season has been cut short with injury. 1.7 shots per game. Again, 90% passing accuracy in his own half. 2.5 tackles per game. It's almost exactly the same sort of stats that he's pulling out as Sol Niguez, but obviously in a Villa team that's struggling against relegation. 1.5 key passes per game, as well as having a couple of tackles every single game as well. John McGinn, heavily underrated midfielder, probably gettable for a decent fee. Someone that we obviously knows the Premier League, and I think would thrive in a good team like Manchester United. All right, compared to Villa, good team. Not a good team for us, but I think if he was your B option in this, I don't think that would be a bad one. I think he definitely improves what we've got, and he helps fit in with everybody else in the team. I think Sol's probably got that higher ceiling, a little bit more quality about him, and obviously that level of Champions League experience, but John McGinn's not a bad alternative. Number 10 then. A lot of talk about number 10s lately. A lot of talk about how bad our number 10s are. But I think that there's a couple out there, certainly in the Premier League, and probably loads abroad, that you can bring in. Jack Grealish is the one I would like to go for. 7 goals and 5 assists so far this season. Only 1.7 shots per game. I think Andreas Pereira averages 25 shots per game, or it certainly feels like it. 2.6 key passes per game, which tells me that he's also putting other players in so they can have shots more than thinking of himself. Actually, I might have a look down into what Andreas Pereira's key passes per game and amount of shots per game are, because I think that'll tell you an entirely different story. 1.1 tackles per game. He tracks back. He presses from the front. 2.3 successful dribbles per game, which tells you the level of quality that he's got. And he also gets fouled 4.8 times per game as well, which means that free kicks are there if we can find someone that can bury them. And that is more than any other player in the Premier League. Jack Grealish is a top player. And I think there's no way he stays at Villa. And I think that United should probably make him a top priority to bring him in. There's not a chance of this happening in January. Villa would literally seal their own fate if they did. So that's one for the summer. But Jack Grealish would be my option for a number 10. Second choice. I mean, I don't really think you could put Maddison as the second choice to him, because I think Maddison's probably a dearer player. So I think if you're going to go second choice, it probably needs to be someone like Todd Cantwell. 6 goals, 2 assists so far this season. Again, another team that's struggling. 1 shot per game, 1 key pass per game. A lot less output than what you're seeing there out of Grealish. Fouled a couple of times, again, a lot less. But also 1.2 tackles per game. So a similar level of defensive tracking and defensive output that you're getting from Cantwell. I think he's available a lot cheaper. I have no idea what sort of price you would end up picking him up for. Probably about maybe half or less what you're going to get for Grealish. Certainly a B choice player. Certainly not your first choice player in that. But is he an improvement on the number 10s we've got? Without a shadow of a doubt. So Todd Cantwell would be the second choice, number 10, I think, in that sense. Which leaves us with just the winger and the striker. Jadon Sancho. Been constantly linked with a move back to England. Last few transfer windows, 10 goals, 10 assists, 16 games. 9 big chances created in the league, 2.2 key passes, 3 successful dribbles, a league goal every 127 minutes this season. United, Liverpool, Chelsea, everyone linked with him. Can we attract him ahead of Liverpool? If Liverpool come in for him and are willing to pay the money to Dortmund, I think he'd be mad to not go, to be honest. I do see him probably being lined up to replace Salah in that Liverpool team, which is a frightening prospect. If they manage to flip Firmino and Salah for Timo Werner and Jadon Sancho, I think they'll have effectively replaced 2 at that free front line and would be a very scary prospect going forward. If United managed to bring him in, it would be someone that would be fit to wear that number 7, someone who could hold his own on that right-hand side, and would be the perfect foil, I think, for how defensive Aaron Wan-Bissaka is. Aaron Wan-Bissaka could literally just stand on the halfway line and be like, get after him, lad. Just go do what you need to do, and I'll just stand there and kick anyone who comes the other way and let Jadon Sancho do what Jadon Sancho does. I think he's a phenomenal player, and I'll be absolutely sickened if he doesn't come to United. There was a lot of talk of him coming last summer. It was real. United just didn't have the desire to pay the money. They're probably going to have to pay even more now because the season he's having is outrageous. He's elite. He's absolutely elite. So that would be my first choice on the right-hand side, because I think it's the right-hand side. I don't think it's the left-hand side we're looking at. But I'm sticking with the right-hand side for my B choice. And the B choice would be Adama Traore. I've been on this guy's back for a while. I like what he offers. It's totally different to what anybody else offers. The guy is a machine. I don't buy that he doesn't do weights. That's got to be a load of bollocks. 4 goals and 7 assists in the league this season. 9 big chances created, which is the same as Sancho. 1.4 key passes per game from the right. Also 1.3 key tackles per game. 5.6 successful dribbles per game. He's rinsing fools, apart from Brandon Williams. 10.6 total duels won per game. Adama Traore, the sort of work rate that he puts in, the sort of attitude that he has on the pitch would be fantastic for United. And I think he could become a fan favourite if he was someone who could buy in. And I reckon if you miss out on Jadon Sancho, you still need someone that's got a little bit of star quality. And for me, Adama Traore's got that. He's a fucking animal. And he's going to end up at a big club. I hope it's United. So he's the B choice, just because I think that the ceiling for Sancho's unlimited. But you don't really miss out if you end up with Adama Traore instead. And that leaves us to our striker. Now, by the sounds of it, Ollie's been looking for a more traditional sort of number 9. One of my strikers is that. My B-choice striker is that. But my A-side striker, Moussa Dembele, he's a bit more in the Tony Marshall mould, but I think he's an upgrade on him. And not everyone agrees with me. The lads in the office certainly don't agree with me on that one. But I think he suits our system a little bit better. I think he's more hard working. I think he's got better movement than Tony Marshall. I don't think he's a better finisher, and I don't think he's a better dribbler, but I think what he's got suits Manchester United a little bit more. So even if we're looking at someone in more that sort of Jimenez, sort of Alfinger Haaland, sort of like big potential hold up, maybe a target man, that's not really Moussa Dembele, but I like him. I said 11 goals, 1 assist in 17 starts, 1.8 shots per game, very low, very clinical. A league goal every 139 minutes. I like him. And supposedly he's going to be available for somewhere in the region of 45 million. That's a bargain. So he would be my first choice. And the B choice, so I don't even know if this is likely, but he wants out of where he is. That's Edison Cavani. Out of contract to the end of the season. Listen to this. 198 goals in 292 games. That's filthy, isn't it? That's absolutely filthy. I don't care where that is. 33 years of age, PSG's all-time top scorer, heavily linked with a move to Atletico, Chelsea and United. I don't think he's coming to United, but you know what? If there's an option, I won't mind him. 2 goals in 9 appearances for PSG in the league so far this season. He would offer something completely different to what we've got. And if it was a loan, if it was a free transfer, I think you could do worse, depending on what his wages are, because I don't think that suits the sort of team and mentality that I think Solskjaer's looking to go with, but that would be who I would go for. So let's run through those again. This is how they would look in a starting 11. So a starting 11 that we could feature next season if we brought in just one out of all of these. So David De Gea in net. I think it's going to be Grimaldo over Williams at left back, Wan-Bissaka, Maguire and Lindelof. Bruno and Saul, that looks good together, doesn't it? That's an absolute improvement on what we've currently got. Grealish, Sancho and Rashford behind Musa Dembele. Now, I think that team competes. I'm not going to sit here and say that team wins every single game, but I certainly think it competes. And do you know why it competes? Because the bench and the rotation would be McTominay, Williams, Axel, Fred, probably Matic. I think he's probably sticking around now. Mata, Dan James, and maybe Tony Marshall. So you can cover up for injuries like we've just seen with Marcus Rashford. And you could probably play Tony on the left, Dembele down the middle. You can bring Mason Greenwood into this. I think it gives you a lot of flexibility and a lot of options. It can probably play free at the back. It can probably play a three-man midfield. You can move Grealish over to the left-hand side. Loads of options, loads of different ways of playing with this team. And I think that would have a real go at competing. Let me know in the comments. What do you think? What do you reckon about my 6? What do you reckon about my backup 6? What do you reckon about that starting 11? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Laters.